the regular NFL best ball season may be over. We may have won some money. We may not have. But that total actual best ball season is not over. In fact, it might just be getting started. NFL playoff best ball is here. And that's what we're going to do tonight. Is that broken?
I need to know what just happened.
Oh, dude, my ears just exploded. I don't know what just I still don't know what just happened. I just had like all kinds of audio coming into my, and I was like, is that me? Is that you? What is happening? Trying to give an intro, and all of a sudden, like, I couldn't normally, so this is funny. The behind the scenes people get to see, even when you've only done 10,000 of these shows, that you can still fuck up every once in a while. And like even yesterday, right, I do the Sirius XM show for 3 hours. So like the producer's talking in your ear, right, while you're going countdowns and telling you what's going on in the football games, whatever. So you kind of you do get a little bit used to talking while someone's in your ear. But just now, it was literally, I'm sure it was something with my computer. I got a bunch of shit open, and all of a sudden, but I normally don't have my computer volume up that loud. And it was like, just like all of a sudden, and I was like, "Whoa, is that me? Is that you? Is this broken? Can people hear me? Like, what is happening right now?" And I was just like, "Hit the fucking intro," because like my ears were just absolutely ringing from whatever the hell was going on. I just closed all my other Chrome things going on, so I probably screwed something up there too. But it was like, oh my god, like I'm panicking, like I was in full out panic mode. I'm like, just hit the intro, nothing else matters.
All the anomalies are supposed to be happening on my end. I'm in a hotel again, but I did pay for the premium internet because God forbid you don't do that when you're out trying to stream on the road. So if anyone had any issues, it should have been me, but like
I know,
I feel like I'm crystal clear. I sound phenomenal as always. I have a trash can on a desk to hold up my webcam because we had to MacGyver this entire situation, but we're here. We're excited. DK dropped some best ball tournaments for the playoffs today, which I was not expecting, to be completely honest. I thought they were just tapping out on this, and then, boy, did they come lay the hammer today. And it's just awesome. Like, I don't know if I can draft anywhere else for the next week because that tournament is freaking sweet.
Yeah, I love shout out to DraftKings. Shout out to everybody. Like,
everybody dropped their tournaments.
Underdog is killing it as usual. Drafters doesn't get enough credit for what they're doing. Like, understand a little bit smaller site, but to launch another there's no reason they had to go put another tournament out there and risk some overlay. There's no reason they had to put a high roller out there and risk overlay in that, right? And then they went aggressive at their $20, which I believe, shout out B. Kurt, said, which is 50% full as of today. I don't know that it will get filled, but then, right, like you said, the other thing I really liked about DraftKings, so for anybody that hasn't played playoff best ball before, some of this may sound a little foreign. I promise you we'll get into it. DraftKings, I think they've done it for multiple years, but all I can really remember is last year. Really all they did was take their regular season playoff like structure, right? Whatever their tech that was for their regular season. So 20 rounds, right? They did limit it to 6-person drafts, but 20 rounds, and they just dropped it out there. I think today, the same day as well. And they were just like, whatever, go have fun. So we were drafting like retired people, like Will Fuller was in play again in this playoff best ball, because by the time you got to the end, you were just like, all these backup quarterbacks that we're talking, like, you were drafting backup quarterbacks. You were drafting guys, on IR, praying that they come back, right? Like, we'll probably talk about like a Mark Andrews and these Sam Laporta, AJ Brown, whatever. Those guys are difficult discussions now because they're injured and we have a limited amount of rounds. Like, when do you take the dive on these hurt guys? Last year on DK, we'd have been like, are we taking these guys in the 8th or the 9th round? Because by the time we get to the 20th, we're drafting XFL players or something.
Yeah, we could run Donovan McNabb and Jamal Charles for that
right.
Super Bowl correlation.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. You're the Super
maybe.
Bowl. Yeah.
Maybe.
What if, look, this show would have been, look, Joe Flacco came back in as a thing. Why can't we take Jamarcus Russell? Right. Like, who knows? Who really knows? So, shout out to DraftKings, though, for anybody that hasn't drafted there yet today. They have multiple different tournaments at multiple different price points, which is awesome. Something they do really, really well. I mean, all the sites really do, but I believe that DraftKings does an awesome job giving everybody access to different tournaments. What I would call kind of their main tournament is a $20, $500,000 prize pool, $100K to first place. It's pretty awesome. And it is 12 rounds. So 6-person drafts, 12 rounds. So they didn't screw it up. They did a good job. I actually love what we have here now this year for playoff best ball. You have Underdog, right? Which is a little bit of the simplified version of playoff best ball, kind of. So half PPR, no bonuses, typical Underdog scoring. Wide receivers and tight ends are combined, right? And they're a little bit smaller drafts, 10 rounds as opposed to 12, which is fine. There's no knock on that. Then you have drafters, which is 12 rounds, but a little bit deeper rosters. You do have to field a tight end, right? So tight ends are not included with wide receivers on drafters, but you have to beat right? It's a cumulative scoring, just like the regular season is. It's you draft that team, you got to beat all however many thousand people that are in your tournament, period. The league that you drafted in doesn't matter. Then you have DraftKings, which is a little bit of a combination of both of them, different scoring, of course. DraftKings scoring, so full PPR with 100-yard and 300-yard bonuses for quarterbacks, but 12 rounds like drafters, and the tight end. You have to fill the tight end position. It's not included with wide receivers. So you actually have a quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end, and a flex. So it is really fun. I hopped in several this morning when I had some free time and saw that they had launched to kind of get my feet wet. So I have some thoughts when we get into one of those a little bit later. Have you had a chance to dabble in any DraftKings and just like what has been your experience across all 3 of the different sites so far?
Yeah, I think I fired 4 of the DraftKings $20 tournaments today, just in between pockets of driving to New York and stopping for gas and all that fun stuff. And I love it. I love the DK product that they have out there for this year. I've been firing drafters the last few weeks. Love the drafters product as well. I still plan to fire a few more drafters teams. I hit the gauntlet pretty well when that dropped. What I love is they're not necessarily time box contests. I mean, I guess the DraftKings one is because you only have, so many days to draft it. But being able to draft, I love that Underdog drops there so early that you can build these teams and you have the ever-evolving ADP, the ever-evolving playoff scenarios. I mean, when that tournament dropped, the Bills weren't making the playoffs from all accounts, right? Like that was, or they might have even been making it, then they weren't making it, then they were making it again.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's how far back that contest goes. So the different combinations of teams you can draft, you probably drafted some dead teams if you drafted enough, but you're also probably in pods with other dead teams. I went back and I saw a nasty 49ers Ravens team that I drafted. And it's like, man, this team would be great if it were ever going to get out of the first round, which it's not going to.
Yep.
So just the uniqueness. It's so funny that you can have playoff best ball with 3 different companies with a unique angle to all 3 of them, right? So you're not just, it's not just DFS, right? It's like DraftKings and FanDuel. Yeah, they're one's half point. DraftKings has the full PPR. The salaries are a little different, but DFS is kind of DFS. A little bit of tweaks here and there, but playoff best ball feels like it's completely different for each site in its own unique little way because of how you have to build your teams. So I've enjoyed drafting on all 3 sites this year.
Yeah, you nailed it. I totally agree. I think particularly with playoff best ball, certainly regular season best ball, I enjoy the fact that there's different formats and there's definitely different strategies. I'm not trying to say that there isn't, but at the end of the day, a little bit, it's like, did you draft, right? Kyron, Puka, CMC or Tyreek or CD or Amon-Ra, right? It's still a little bit binary in terms of there's room around, there's gray areas and nuances and everything, but
sure.
On all of the formats, it's kind of like there's a little bit of something you needed to do, and if you didn't do it, or if you weren't like this year, we'll talk about this in the off season. Everybody loves to spend all this time analyzing all this stuff for regular season best ball, and at the end of the day, if you didn't get a pick at the 1-2 turn, tough shit. Like, like nothing else mattered. Like Christian McCaffrey was awesome. Tyreek Hill was awesome. When Justin Jefferson played, he was awesome. Like it wasn't even like they were bad picks, but like it didn't matter. Like nothing mattered. You needed to have the 1-2 turn pick. So that is like an element of variance that we don't consider. Of course, that's possible in playoff best ball too, but the differences are so much more dramatic in terms of how it impacts the results in playoff best ball, right? Like even just like 1 out of 6 advance versus 2 out of 6 advance out of the first round. So another thing, like if you're just getting started in playoff best ball, to really consider, and I think Underdog did a really good job. They put it when you click the tournament and it opens that little modal that pop up. If you don't know what modal is, the pop up, they put kind of at the top, I believe, what your first round advancement is, whether 1 out of 6 teams or 2 out of 6 teams advance. So shout out to them for putting that up there. But like just that is like, I mean, that's a huge difference. Like, do I need to beat all 5 teams, or can I get a little riskier, right? Because I know I only got to beat 4 teams. It's right. How I attack the bye weeks and all that kind of stuff is so different. And all that's different, right? Obviously, drafters in playoff best ball is like crazy different than the other ones. But even DraftKings versus Underdog is very, very different, right? Deeper, having the tight end versus not having the tight end is huge, like huge. And I just don't think that people listening to this for sure, the people in our Discord and the sickos out there are very cognizant of all this kind of stuff. But I think the overwhelming majority of people that we're drafting against, even people that are maybe good at best ball or good at fantasy football, are not taking you just show up and you think the Niners are going to make the Super Bowl. I'm going to build a decent team, around that fact and move on. Right. And it's like, man, there's just so much to this. Like I've been updating some stuff that we have in our playoff best ball almanac at Spike Week, which there's a link to in the description. It's just $20. If you want to get up to speed, the easiest way to get up to speed on playoff best ball is that almanac. I can assure you, just, pop the audio or video files that we've done into your ears, enjoy it. I promise the intros are better than what I put out here today. There's team previews for every single team that has made the playoffs. And we have surveys and all sorts of different stuff, strategies for each site that B. Kurt did and Silas did that are awesome. Check that out if you want to get up to speed on playoff best ball in the best way. And I think crush your drafts. But like the tight end thing, I just wanted to point that out before we start to like dive into anything more, is like, I'm not sure we could emphasize it enough. Like, you have to have a tight end on drafters and on DraftKings. Maybe not every round, but certainly 3. And not only do you need to have them, they need to put up real points. Like Durham Smythe isn't doing shit for you, right? You need to put, and if you thought tight end was bad over the summer, we only have so many teams, and not all of them even have tight ends you care about. And if they have a tight end you care about, they may not have a chance to advance, right? Yeah. Or they may have a bye in the opening round, right? George Kittle, Isaiah Likely, they sound like 2 of the better tight ends, or Mark Andrews, I guess. Yeah, they do to me too. But guess what? You don't get to use their score in week 1. It's like such a fun, it's chess, right? Regular best ball, you could probably call it checkers, honestly. And this is a little bit more of chess because there are so many things you have to take into account in any one draft. And it's very difficult to do so. And even if you try to do it, even if you're actively doing it, you're really smart about this, you're on it, you're absolutely on it in that draft. Like the people you draft against may not give you what you're trying to do. And you got to constantly be adapting and build a team on the fly that can still win, even though the thing didn't, that you needed or wanted didn't play out in your favor.
Yeah. The tight end thing's gigantic as you're building these teams on the 2 sites that you need them. The strategy behind it is so different. There's been a strategy I've been trying to implement that actually helps with the tight end, I believe, where we're going to start talking strategy. So I'm just going to bring this up now where, so let's start with this. Last year, I think this is the perfect time to jump into playoff best ball because last year during this, didn't it just feel like the Chiefs and the Eagles were inevitable last year? For the most part, like,
Yeah.
I mean, as you're
They-
drafting,
I think Chiefs felt really strong. So here's sorry to cut you off, but to add
Mhm,
my contextual thoughts, it felt to me like 4 teams, and the Chiefs and Eagles had the buys, right? They had the
mhm,
buys, so they
yeah,
had a big leg up on the 49ers and the Bills. I felt like those 4 teams, if I'm remembering correctly, somebody can hop in the chat and tell me like, no, you forgot this team, you idiot. But it felt like those 4 teams, it was like, you know, are they, this isn't this year's, this wasn't this year's Cowboys last year, right?
yeah.
Like, are the Cowboys really going to do it? Like, it's possible, it's technically possible, right? This wasn't the Bengals that made the Super Bowl. This wasn't, it wasn't that. The Eagles especially were so dominant, and I did believe in the 49ers. And this wasn't this year's Chiefs. Last year's Chiefs were a lot better than this year's Chiefs, and they had the bye. So
Right.
I agree with you that I think it felt really consolidated, and I have some strong takes on the maybe a little bit similar to that this year, but I don't know that it feels the same, basically, to your point.
So that's the point I'm bringing up is last year, I felt like every best ball draft that I was doing for the playoffs was how can I draft a team and still be able to field Eagles Chiefs in the Super Bowl? Because I was just like, this is just, in my opinion, 80% chance that this is a Super Bowl. I'm just throwing a random number out, but like that's how strong I felt about it. This year, I don't have that conviction with any team going directly to the Super Bowl. Do I think the 49ers are the likely favorite? Of course. Are the Ravens the favorite in the AFC? Yes. Can I see the Bills making it to the Super Bowl? Absolutely. I can see Miami getting there. I can see the Chiefs kind of getting there. It's going to be tough for them to do it. On the NFC side, the 49ers, they could shit the bed. We know the Cowboys love to do that, but they could still make it.
Yeah.
The Eagles is an abomination going on over there right now. But let me just tell you, if they get through, they're especially on DK right now, the prices for the Eagles. And I bring all that up because one of the strategies that I really like to implement, especially on DK right now, is let's just say I'm building a Miami team, right? I want 4 Dolphins with Tua or something like that. Like Tua, Tyreek, give me one of the running backs, and then whoever you want to put on as the fourth. Cedric Wilson, Waddle's
Mhm.
real cheap if you want to try to take that
Waddle is
shot.
free right now,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, you can get Waddle. But I like to do two of the NFC, 2 players from separate NFC teams to try to get 2 to 3 Super Bowl matchups. Like I'm betting on Miami to make the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean I have to bet on one NFC team to make the Super Bowl. I can try to find a way to get 2 49ers, whether it's Kittle as my tight end, because God, does that not fit perfectly when
Yeah,
you're trying to do a Miami build? Like, what do you hate on the Miami side, the tight end position?
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's throw Kittle in there, and then we can do whatever else we want to do with the other position. Juwan Jennings, any of the backup running backs, whatever you want to do there. You can get Eagles there cheap enough. So now you can have 49ers, Eagles. A little bit difficult to do it with the Cowboys as well as the 49ers, but Dolphins are cheap enough that you can kind of do this stuff, right? You can do it with the Bills. And that's kind of the way I've been building my matchups lately, not just focusing on like, okay, I think it's going to be Ravens, Cowboys. So let me make sure I'm only getting Ravens, Cowboys. Well, let me do a Cowboys stack with 4 because guess what? The Ravens as well. Lamar's expensive. Zay Flowers a little bit expensive. You can get Odell. You can get Rashad Bateman. You can get every other. One of my sneaky favorite players in this entire thing, Justice Hill,
100%. I was
is like is like
he was coming up today for sure.
Justice Hill is my guy right now for when I'm doing Raven stuff or doing just 2 Ravens, right? Like if I'm doing an NFC build and I'm trying to put it with, let's just say I'm doing that 49ers build. Well, then I can get it's so easy to get it's so easy to get any of the AFC teams. There's some guys that are super expensive, but there's enough Bills that are cheap. There's enough Dolphins that are cheap. There's enough Ravens that are cheap that I can do a 3 to 4 player 49ers build and run it back with duos of each of these AFC teams making sure that if they do make the Super Bowl, guess what? I can still field a full squad if I can get this team through. So that's kind of the way I've been playing it a little bit. I don't know if that's something you've been flirting with, or if you're just trying to really hit on the Super Bowl matchup so that when you get there, you're just overwhelmingly strong, or if you're just trying to field a team.
Yeah. So it's so funny that you bring up Justice, because we don't plan. You guys have probably heard this before, and we've probably said it before, but we don't really plan for these shows. As a matter of fact, I showed up literally 12 seconds before, probably why my shit went crazy, because I literally just got home, sat down, and was like, all right, Rob, let's do it. And we were like, okay, let's go live. So we don't do generally a lot of planning. But it's funny to hear you say Justice Hill, because doing drafts earlier today, throughout the day, I started to like really feel like I think Justice Hill is the best pick in all of these best ball drafts, because he fits like almost right. This isn't like regular season best ball. The player has to fit the kind of scenarios you've laid out. You build it, this cheesy ass cliche, right? Your lineup needs to tell a story, but that's sometimes true in regular season best ball, but it's 100% true in playoff best ball. It has to tell some story, right? You can't just take these random flyer one-offs, especially on a bye week team, right? That doesn't necessarily make sense. He needs to fit what you're doing. But a lot of the times on the Super Bowl favorites, when you're attaching another guy to kind of finish your build, right? You need one more Raven, or you need that guy, right? You did a Cowboys or Eagles or whatever on the NFC side, and you need that last AFC piece. A lot of the times you're like, oh my God, you mentioned Jawan Jennings, Ronnie Bell, McCole Hardman, CEH. Like, you're looking at the guys who you're like, please God, score 3 fantasy points in the Super Bowl and be like somehow, right? Justin Watson goes in every single draft. You're like, please, Chiefs got to make the Super Bowl, which is not looking all that likely. And B, the god awful wide receiver needs to catch a touchdown, right? You're really banking on something kind of crazy happening. Justice Hill is the pass catching running back for the Baltimore Ravens, who also does get some carries. Depending upon the game script, is going to play half the snaps, more than half the snaps in the Super Bowl, given that Keaton Mitchell is out. Like, he's arguably their RB1. I know Gus is, like, by old school definitions, the RB1. He's the lead, in between the 20s runner and, of course, goal line runner. But, like, did you watch the Dolphins game? I know Gus technically got more carries. Justice Hill was the weapon in that backfield. He, like, outside of Lamar, was like the reason why they won that game. I know Zay had the big play, but Justice Hill was amazing in that Dolphins game. And and he was pretty good against the Steelers, playing with freaking Tyler Huntley and a bunch of losers out there on Saturday. He just feels to me like anytime I have Ravens, right, and I need that one of those late round picks, that Justice Hill is just such a slam dunk, because he's a good pick in general. He's on the team who is the favorite to make the Super Bowl. He's not, oh God, maybe CMC gets hurt, right? Eli Mitchell goes in every draft too. And it's like you're betting against the upside of the team that you want to make the Super Bowl, which is fine. I have drafted some Eli Mitchell too, right? But you're drafting Ronnie Bell. You're drafting these guys just to fill out a Super Bowl roster. Whereas Justice Hill is like a real player. Like, he could really actually score 18 fantasy points in the Super Bowl and no one would be surprised. And those are the kind of guys that I really, really want. You know what I mean? He could help you in round 2. Like, actually make your lineup in round 2. It's not even just the Super Bowl play. It's like, that's the perfect, we talk about threading the needle. Like, he is threading the needle on a late round pick that, like, and that doesn't come around very often. Like, I've drafted a bunch of George Pickens today on DraftKings as an example. Like, that's the kind of guy that we take in the late rounds, because you're like, well, I know he's going to lose in the first round, but please have a big game to get me into round 2. Justice Hill is like the perfect late round pick, where it's like, dude, you can help me in round 2, round 3, and round 4, and you're cheap, and you're on the Super Bowl favorite. Like, that's just absolutely crazy. So anyway, Justice Hill, side tangent, but I also think he represents like a lot of the things that we're trying to think about when we're talking through these players. You know what I mean? All those different things happen to come together for him, and that's why he makes so much sense.
I mean, all that being said, as long as Dalvin Cook doesn't come in and start stealing all the work over there in Baltimore,
I will. I don't know what I will do, but it will be ugly. It will be ugly. It'll be about. It might be about the same as when DK Metcalf dropped that touchdown in Week 17 against the Steelers. It was not. I wasn't having a lot of fun in that time. If Dalvin,
it does feel like Dalvin's going to come in and not play any snaps until the Super Bowl, and then get like the 1 yard Super Bowl touchdown for the random player. And
Gus gets banged up, and they can't. The teams have their. It's like the Bills. If you watch the Bills game last night, whatever it is about if it's third or fourth and less than 3, it's got to be a big fat guy. God forbid James Cook gets the ball, right? The best player on our offense besides Stephon Diggs. God forbid he gets the ball. I'll never forget. We were on air last night. Me and I do the show with Chris Prince, aka Beer Makers Fan, and we're watching the game and we're on Sirius, and they go to a 3rd and short, and they put Leonard Fournette in, and he got the first down. But it was a I don't know if it was zone or whatever. But anyway, he cuts it back off of it was a good cut. It was a good play by Lenny. But he's so fat and slow that he made the cut, and the linebacker, who actually originally was going the wrong direction, still stopped, put his foot in the ground, went over and caught him. And you're sitting watching, and you're like, Jesus, he got 1 yard on that. Like, there was no one over there, but he's so slow. And you're just thinking, if James Cook did that, he was gone, like literally gone, because he runs a 4.40 and Leonard Fournette runs a 5.240. And it's like, these teams are so obsessed with putting the big fat slow veteran in there that I could absolutely see, right? Gus gets banged up, Dalvin's active over Melvin Gordon because Melvin Gordon fumbles every 3rd carry, and they're like, no, Justice, you're too little, you can't get that carry. Here comes Dalvin Cook for the touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so can't wait to watch best ball teams win $100,000 because they drafted Dalvin Cook and somehow snuck that team into the playoff best ball. Can I ask you one more strategy question that I want to get your opinion on? Because I saw somebody do this earlier, and at first I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I watched them continue to do it. And I'm like, oh, I think that's probably bad. So it was on DK, and they started their draft off with CeeDee Lamb. Great. Good stuff, right? They continue to get Pollard, Dak, Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Rico Dowdle. So I think they had 7 Cowboys. And then they drafted, I think, 3 Ravens. And I think there was like a Buck on there and whatever. Just pick your poison for whoever else was on there. And I'm like, I don't hate like overloading a team, especially a team like Dallas, but we still got to get this team through, right? And you got to think that you're cannibalizing yourself to an extent somewhat in order to get through to the Super Bowl. And it just seemed bad. I mean, the Dowdle pick's the worst of them all.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, obviously, but I'm not trying to, call anybody out. I'm just like, in general.
What was their username? What was their username, address, social security number?
It's a known one.
Oh, that's great. No, I will say I've seen smart people that I respect. Smart people do not necessarily that. 7 is crazy even for a lot of people, but somewhere in that ballpark, I've seen plenty of smart drafters like really overstack a couple of teams, like kind of like what you just mentioned. And I can understand why people are doing that, but I actually think one of our biggest edges is that the dumb people have no idea what they're doing. They're just clicking buttons and creating dead teams. And then some smart people take the whole futures part of this, right? So playoff best ball is a combination of best ball and like the futures market, right? And I think that some smart people take the futures part of it a little too far, specifically around like 2 teams on one build. Now, there's different, we talked at the top about different, right, tournament structures and advancement structures and all that kind of stuff, and that all plays into it. But I actually think one of our biggest edges is something that you kind of outlined earlier. Like, you kind of have to, what I like to do personally, where I think we can thread the needle. We're going to say another cliche a lot, but threading the needle is a lot.
You finally figured out how to say it. So you're like, God, I just got to keep using this analogy after I screwed it up 3 months ago. I'm going to make sure that I let everyone know that I know that it's thread the needle now.
Exactly. Like my next intro tomorrow night is going to be about 7 minutes long because I'm going to realize that I know how to do it now without screwing it up. Same thing. Exactly. Same thing. But we have to, like, it's so hard to build a team. Like they're trying to say, like, I just got this one thing right. Cowboys blow up the whole playoffs, right? I'll get the Ravens around in the second round. I sneak through. I get it. I do get it. But I actually think something that I talked about in the Discord today a little bit that is like my kind of guiding light to playoff basketball is trying to create what I like to call like the cleanest path to winning the thing in every single draft. And that varies from draft to draft. I'm not saying it doesn't really have anything to do with like individual team takes or player takes, but it does have to do with like giving my team like several different outs to where I really only need kind of one thing to go right. And it's kind of like what you said, like if I'm on Underdog, like probably my favorite structure is something like 4 from one team in one conference. Let's call it the Cowboys. In this example of that person, I take 4 Cowboys, right? I take Dak. Ideally, I would cover all the positions. Like if it's a total dream, you would cover all the positions, right? Give me Dak, Pollard, CeeDee, and Ferguson. And I'm like, okay, so no matter what, I have all the positions covered. Now that gives me max flexibility to go attack the AFC. But what I would really like to do is get 3 different AFC teams with 2 players on there, right? So now I'm covered on all the positions. But I know I need Dallas, right? This team needs Dallas. Once this team needs Dallas, I don't really give a shit about anything else in the NFC, and I don't really give a shit about predicting the future at all for anything. It's Dallas. So now, how do I maximize my chances of winning this tournament? Right? How do I make it the cleanest way ever for me to win this tournament if I made that one Dallas bet, right? My stance on this team is Dallas makes a Super Bowl. So the easiest way for me is like, give me 3 different chances. Like, I don't really care who they are, right? Give me 3 different AFC teams. I'll take 3 of the 7, right? I almost have a 50% chance. I know that's not the real math, right? The Ravens have a better chance or whatever, but give me Bateman and Justice Hill, and give me George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, and give me Amari Cooper and David Njoku, or what, I'm making up names. I don't know that ADP fits for those guys, but you get the point. Now I got 3 strong teams. Steelers, not so much, but if the Browns or the Ravens, or God forbid, the Steelers just like win a game, right? They go beat the Bills this week. Like, I'm set up so golden. And I just like to build that way a little bit more, where I'm not so overconfident on just those 2 teams, or specifically just like 7 of one team. You can be overconfident and make that stand on the Cowboys and just draft 4 or even 3, right? Depending upon what site you're on. And so that's kind of how I like to view it. I always tell people when I'm starting, or when they're starting, they're like, what's like a good way to just like approach my first draft or whatever? I always just say, like, make sure you get your Super Bowl, and make sure you can field a team in the Super Bowl, right? A full roster in the Super Bowl. Make sure you can field a full team that can advance out of round 1. And then, something like 4-2-2-2 or 4-3-3 or 4, I'm speaking in underdog terms, right? But like, something like that. Just like, there's no right or wrong. There's no how many quarterbacks do you take. There's none of that, but it needs to tell this story, and it needs to check a couple of boxes. And that's really it. And for me, that like 7-3-1-1 or whatever, I don't know that checks the boxes that I'm looking to check.
Yeah. As you were going through that in the beginning, all that was going through my mind is I need to write a Scott Steiner best ball math promo and record that. And I probably shouldn't say it out loud. I'm sure there's other sites that might want to come and although if I do it, they'll still come and do it. So whatever. But if you see anyone do Scott Steiner math for best ball playoff teams, come let them know it was my idea first.
Agreed. Yeah, this is a funny one. What do you think about this before we start to hop in drafts? Because I have a maybe contrarian take on this that Jonathan says, for the audio listeners, and also try to have those conference teams meet in the championship game. Absolutely. If I had my druthers, right, I would have the teams on that AFC side in that Dallas example. I'd have Dallas, and I'd have my 3 AFC teams. And in the ideal scenario, they would not have a chance to meet each other until as late as possible. I agree that would be the goal. I don't hold as firm to that as other people do. It is, I don't want my guys to play in the first round. And ideally I don't want them to play in the second round, but I don't worry about it as much as other people, like, because Dallas is my bet on that team. It's not that I want my guys to lose early. I definitely don't. But like, I've made my bet on Dallas. I almost don't care what happens on the other side. I'm just trying to, right? We're playing roulette now. I put a big old stack of chips on one number. That's really what I need. And let's spread a couple more out. Let's spread a couple on black. Let's split, let's move a couple things around. So I cover some extra bases, you know what I mean? But I made that one big bet. If that one doesn't hit, nothing else matters. And so I try not to, like, we're already trying to thread really tight needles. I try not to like make it even harder, you know what I mean? And like create rules that I don't need to create.
Yeah. And I think that really comes down to your construction too. Like the one we're talking about where you kind of hit on one team in a conference and then try to get 3 from the other. I don't think it matters at that point. Like you're trying to nail the two.
Point is, the point's just to get 3 of them. Like, because I want to get 3 out of 7 shots on the matchup. Yeah.
And I know that there are people that go out there and they try to nail the NFC and AFC championship game. And I'm not even saying that that's wrong. I think it's a harder position to be in to try to hit that. Especially when you think the 2 1 seeds are going to make it there. Right. So like now you're already creating like a very tough situation to build through. So I think it's possible. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it occasionally, but to the point you were just making, depending on your build, right? Let's Tampa Bay. Do we think Tampa Bay is making the Super Bowl?
No.
Do we think
they might beat the Eagles?
They might beat the Eagles. they might beat the Eagles. You might get 2 games out of them if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But if you're building the NFC team right through, let's just say, well, actually, you have to say through San Fran because they got the 1 seed. I still want to do the AFC thing that we're talking about. But if I'm looking to advance through round 1, I don't hate one-offing like Mike Evans in that spot, right?
Agreed.
Because the pure upside of Mike Evans is 27, 28 points and boosting you through the first round, even if you lose that piece. You're going to lose pieces anyways, right? Just by sheer like tournament rules, you're going to lose pieces to these teams. Do we want to lose them right away? Absolutely not. But if Mike Evans is putting up 26 to 30 for you in week 1 and gets you through on the playoff teams, or hell, if you draft him on drafters and he gets you 30 points, he still might outscore some of your wide receivers that make it through 3 or 4 games.
Correct.
Right? So just that pure upside of Mike Evans and where you're getting him in drafts, and there's a few guys you can do this with. I'm okay with doing it. I think it makes more sense on San Francisco teams, but I could do it with any of the teams that I'm drafting because you could take Tampa as one of those 3 teams, right? Let's just say you're Cinderellaing them to the conference championship game. You take Mike Evans and you take, Cade Otton, undrafted tight end in these formats that you need a tight end. Cade Otton's as good as anybody else as long as they're making it through to that. But if that's the bet you're going to make, why not make that bet on Cade Otton and Mike Evans, right?
I agree.
Because everyone's doing the Rashad White, Mike Evans thing, the Chris Godwin, Mike Evans thing. I don't know. Like that's the way that I kind of look at it in a nutshell.
I agree. I want to hit some comments and then we can start hopping in some drafts and you guys can join us. Thank you, Jewish McCaffrey. I wasn't aware you don't need a tight end on Underdog. Yes, I was just referencing names. What I will say, I think tight ends are undervalued on Underdog. I think they're undervalued on all the sites because I don't think people are understanding just how important the upside tight ends are on the other sites. Because like even if you get, especially on drafters, on DraftKings, there's a little more nuance to it, of course. But I mean, like George Kittle should be going higher on DraftKings. That's like one of my big takeaways. And frankly, both Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews should be going higher on DraftKings as well. David Njoku, blah blah blah. But on Underdog, I guess I shouldn't say all tight ends. Some tight ends are probably overvalued because of the team they play on Underdog. But then other tight ends like David Njoku, I think are probably undervalued on Underdog because he's just a boss, dude. He scores a lot of fantasy points. I know he's a tight end and he's on the Browns, so like maybe that knocks him, but I don't know. Why can't the Browns make the Super Bowl? Like, we'll probably get into that when we get into some of these drafts. Like, I draft a lot of Browns. I draft a lot of Njoku and Amari Cooper and Jerome Ford and Flacco and whatever. I don't see why they can't be in there also. But this is a good question from Jewish McCaffrey. That name is so good. Is there any good data as to whether it's better to go 2 teams from each conference? So ideally playing for the conference championship, getting all 4 conference championship teams, or is it worth more going 1 team from one conference and 3 teams from the other conference? From a data perspective, there's definitely no data. That's kind of what makes playoff basketball so fun to me, is that we will never ever get data that you can use in an actionable way, because it's this game being the combination of futures and best ball is entirely dependent upon who wins games, right? And like, if there's one upset, it changes the entire data set for that whole season, right? Or if last year both bye week teams made it. A couple of years ago, the Titans got the bye. They didn't win a game. They were the worst picks in the whole draft, right? When the Titans have the bye, it's very different than when the Ravens have the bye. And so you can't go use that historical data without applying the context for this season. So to your point, this is such a good question, because the answer is there any good data? No. But can you do either of these things? Yes.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing about this is everybody wants to like have rules to how they draft. And certainly for playoff best ball, because you're like kind of trying to create this playoff bracket, within your team. But as long as that lineup has a path to winning and tells some form of a story of how it gets to that win, it really doesn't matter. There are better versions of that and worse versions. There are more likely versions and less likely versions. But like, it doesn't matter. Drafting 2 teams from each conference and trying to play out the Super Bowl in that way is totally fine. Also trying to do what I just outlined, right? Let's take my Cowboys stand and then give me shots on the other side is totally fine, right? Or one of the first gauntlets I did that I was most excited about, shout out to the Jags for fucking that all up this weekend, was I CMC, Debo, and Ayuk, okay, in the gauntlet on Underdog. So I started with those 3. This is back when you were talking earlier about the Bills were really cheap because they were like 30% to make the playoffs. I drafted Bills, Jags, Browns, I want to say, with them. And so I actually did a little weird version of what I talked about. I said, all right, Niners are making it, but they're going to have the bye, but I don't have Purdy. So I need quarterbacks from the AFC. So I created 3 stacks from the AFC, so I don't believe it's dead, but I think it might have Gabe on it. It sounds really dead. But like, I was like, okay, the Niners are going to make it, but I need 3 AFC teams, but in a weird way, right? Because I don't have the Niners quarterback. So I need the quarterbacks from the other side. And so, but like, people would tell you, wait, you drafted 3 quarterbacks on a playoff basketball team? So, yeah, because my story that I was telling was the Niners make it, but I don't have Purdy. I want the quarterback from the AFC, so I need to give myself options, right? Could I have drafted only 2 teams? Of course, I could have done that too. But like, as long as it's live, as long as it has a path to first place and it's telling some story that gets you there, it's totally and it's live to get out of the first round, right? You got to be able to get out of the first round. It's fine. Like it's fine. And so I think that's the biggest thing is we're trying to make decisions based upon whatever story we're telling on that team that give us a chance to win, as opposed to like, what's a rule, right? How many quarterbacks do I draft? How many of each team do I draft? And that, I think that's what gets lost, and that's our edge. But that's our edge, being willing to be flexible.
Yeah, and like think about getting that team through the pod, right? And you have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and then you just add the 49ers, and there's the teams
and
that
Lawrence and Ridley. Like, it would have had Lawrence, Ridley, Diggs, Allen, and like Flacco, Amari. with the 49ers. And it would be like, holy shit, dude, if that team gets through, like, you know, if I can get out of round one with a couple, like maybe two of those AFC teams win, imagine that's amazing.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people that get through the first round and you get into that pod and you're like looking through the other teams you have to go against and you see that and you made it through with just teams from like round that played in the first round, you're just like, come on, dude, really? How did this guy get this team through? And then you look at it and you're like, fuck, all right, well, I guess we got to run real hot to beat this 49ers team. And that's why you do it, right? Like that's, you know, you're trying to thread the needle. We're going to have to get a drop for that.
Yes.
Jesse. I saw Jesse in the chat earlier.
Yes.
He's good with that stuff. We have a stamp of approval on Hometown Ghost Stories. We're going to have to get a thread the needle drop.
There are it's funny you bring that up because Jesse, if you are listening, you got a lot of tasks to work on over the next few months, because every best ball cliche, I want one of those. We're gonna turn this into 1990s shitty talk radio with all the drops and everything. Yeah.
MTV, baby.
Yeah, exactly. This is I'm gonna be Carson Daly. You can be Jenny McCarthy, I guess, here on this show. Should we draft?
Let's draft.
Because
now I'm confused. So let's draft.
Well, you look a lot like Jenny McCarthy. So
I know it's the hair, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do. How about drafters first?
Let's do drafters.
I would like to do a $20, if that's okay with everybody. I think this is my first, maybe my second. I don't remember.
I've hit quite a few of these drafters. I think I'm 6 or 7 in. I'm definitely going to get to 10 because they give you a ticket. If you get to 10, they give you a free entry.
Yeah.
So are you drafting a basketball team?
No. No, that is a NBA best ball team. Looks like my best team's in 57th.
Oh.
Who else is up here?
Anyone we know?
Yeah, there's definitely some people that we know. Yeah, this big ticket guy has been dominating. I know that for sure. Jace, I don't know if Jace is listening. Jace is in the Discord though. Jace is crushing.
Nice.
This fucking guy who dominated the high roller against us in NFL. Shocker.
He's in there crushing.
He's a crusher.
I meant to draft more NBA best ball teams, and I ended up only drafting one the entire offseason. It was like a plan, and then just life hits you fast sometimes. And I drafted the one I drafted on stream with Zakarian, and it's actually doing pretty well. So
if Underdog doesn't change their rules for NBA playoff best ball next year or NBA best ball next year, I will not draft a single goddamn team on Underdog. I'm enjoying DraftKings, and I didn't draft as many as I wanted to on drafters, but still, I'm enjoying those. But the format on Underdog is dreadful, absolutely dreadful. How do you? What?
Yeah, I was like looking at the payouts on it. I was like,
it's bad.
Yeah,
it's rough.
They
did what they did to Best Ball Mania, except it's like 90% to the regular season, but they still carved out, like, if you win the playoff version of the split like we had in BBM, I think it's 10 grand out of like a $500,000 prize pool. It's like I did all this for 10 grand. Like I feel like we've jumped the shark here on that. Like just make it at this point, just make it a full cumulative tournament. What is the exact point? Like you get third out of 75,000 teams, you get like 2 grand or whatever. It's like, guys, what are we doing here?
Do they even have a leaderboard for that if that's the way they're doing it? Or
but it's not like linked in the it's a little bit of they did much better, on some of the other tournaments. I really enjoyed weekly winners and the eliminators. Everybody seemed to really like the eliminators and stuff. 101.
Do we like the 101? That's the question.
Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, I don't hate Christian McCaffrey. I've really liked some of the stuff I can do from the 106 though.
Yeah. That's fair. I just like Christian McCaffrey only for having run one running back spot. I only got to take one, and running back does get a little sketchy. Like we talked a lot about
running backs.
we took a. Well, I know. I'm saying.
Oh, I got you.
One more. I only have to take one more running back,
Mm-hmm.
and running back gets a little sketchy. Like right? We talked about we love Justice Hill, and I do love Justice Hill, but like obviously not with he doesn't fit unless we get to a Ravens thing with 49ers. But running back gets thinned out a little bit, man. Like pretty quickly. There's not like we talked about tight end. Running back is like a little sketchy. We lost. Like the Ravens have two running backs, but they're not exactly that exciting. Tony Pollard isn't exactly that exciting, and he's on a fun team. I do really like the Browns, but like Jerome Ford's just kind of like whatever. It's a little tricky. Running back is trickier, I think, than it probably gets credit for.
Yeah, well, I still want to give a shout out to Tony Pollard and Travis Etienne, who you brought up earlier, because they were part of my 5-pick parlay yesterday that I round robin the death out of and made thousands of dollars.
I played Tony Pollard in DFS yesterday. It was nice. We finally got in the end zone. Can we take CMC, please?
Yeah, why wouldn't we?
Okay. I've seen people taking CD 101.
I've seen the CD 101 as well.
I got CMC 4th overall on a draft in DraftKings earlier today on one.
Wow.
I drafted six teams. One of them got CMC 4th.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty nice.
I don't think I've seen that. I've seen the CD 101, but I don't think I've seen CMC fall past 102 ever. And it's like real unlikely that he falls past the 101 in the drafts I've done.
It's CD, Josh Allen, Lamar went in front. You know how people love their quarterbacks on DraftKings.
Yeah, they do. They definitely love quarterbacks on DraftKings. All right.
And Cole, if you're still listening, I saw your question. I promise we'll get to it.
All right. So we're seeing the 49ers just get depleted throughout this first round into the turn.
Which is okay on drafters. It's really tilting on the other sites where you need to get to the Super Bowl. It's not as bad on drafters. But everybody's gone. I think we just obviously we don't even really worry about the 49ers.
Right. How do you want to build this?
Not AJ Brown. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I'm open to Kelsey. I'm open to Diggs, Mahomes, Zay.
God, I kind of like
Mahomes, Kelsey, Zay, and really get crazy with the buys. We got 3 seconds.
I like Diggs.
Did I get him?
I think
okay.
So. And then
Allen's gone. Okay. Diggs. Okay, let me think about this. James Cook. First round, James Cook, and no more running backs.
Yeah, let's do that. I like that.
Okay, so now we need our big bet on the Bills, bet on the 49ers, but like kind of like you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say we don't want the 49ers to make the Super Bowl. But we've set up an interesting one where we're definitely going to be hitting some kind of late team here that we want to make a run. So like who is that? You know what I mean? Because we need a quarterback, we need a tight end, and we're not going to have Allen or Purdy, so we're not going to have those two. We want those two teams to make a run, but we want to score a bunch of fucking points. With whatever other teams we get here. I think spitballing. Browns feel good to me. Rams feel pretty good to me on this team. Lions, Amon-Ra's gone and Laporte is hurt, so maybe not Lions. Dolphins.
So now you're speaking my language, because I think
Dak's still around. I mean, I know the other, but just throwing out ideas.
Dak's interesting. But I kind of feel like we've built the Buffalo side, right? I think, God, the Dak thing kind of makes sense too.
Okay, fucking Kyron. Okay.
Do you want to build this through? Because Dak Ferguson makes a ton of sense. Not saying we have to take Ferguson at the moment. I got to see his ADP on
Dak
drafters.
Ferguson, but okay,
Waddle too would make sense too.
Waddle's gone.
Oh, Waddle went. I think Dak makes sense then.
I think we have to do Dak Ferguson.
Yeah, I think we have to do Dak Ferguson as well.
Come back for Jalen Tolbert in the last round.
Yeah.
So CMC in this scenario, right? CMC crushes 2 games or whatever, but they lose to Dallas in the playoffs. Dallas makes the Super Bowl. Dallas Buffalo Super Bowl is kind of what we started to build out here.
Yeah, but we can still build out secondary teams other than Buffalo.
Absolutely. So yeah, we don't. I actually think this is a big edge on drafters is that you don't need on Underdog and DraftKings. You need kind of the nuts in the Super Bowl too, right? You need to get there, but you also you don't want to be counting, Trent Sherfield's score in the finals. You want to be counting the guys who score a bunch of points. Trent Sherfield caught a touchdown, I guess, yesterday, so maybe I shouldn't besmirch him. But on this, it's we want to field a full roster in the Super Bowl if we can, but it doesn't have to be totally perfect. You know what I mean? Because we can have a lead with Christian McCaffrey. We can have a lead with, like you said, these other teams that we mix in here. I really like, I'm going to keep saying it. I really like the Browns, Rams. I assume Puka's gone, right?
He's got to be.
Fuck.
Well.
Who's in the two? Who's picking second?
Well, somebody with a Ram, so it would kind of make sense if they go that route.
Yeah, he is Kyron.
Ooh, are we gonna get him? Are we going?
Okay, I would like Puka, if you're cool with Puka.
I'm cool with Puka.
Nico makes some sense if we want to just swing on a first round high upside guy or Mike Evans. We need some wide receiver juice.
I mean, I like Mike Evans as the ultimate one-off.
Let's do Puka. Let's do Puka Evans.
Yeah, let's do it.
They can both win.
Mm-hmm.
They don't screw up anything else here that we've done. Right? We need to get some kind of Jalen Tolbert, or I assume Brandon Cooks is gone.
Yeah, Cooks went to Felix.
So
I was eyeballing that. The Cooks pick. I didn't want to say it out loud.
For anybody that hasn't been paying attention, the Michael Gallup experiment, that shit's over. That dude's dust. He hasn't had a target in 2 weeks. Jalen Tolbert has taken that over. I don't really want to do Rico Dowdle, but I do think Tolbert makes for a good pick. And then I want to put out.
Well, we don't want to do any more running backs.
No.
We're kind of.
So we don't have to because the flex is in play.
Because we could build a second AFC. Because if we do a second AFC team, we got to build the second AFC team with the running back as well.
Yeah, right.
Because of the way we built. So
because we have Dallas without the running back, the AFC team has to be with the running back. But we also don't have to. We can stand firm on a Bills Cowboys Super Bowl and just piecemeal this together with swings. You know what I mean? We can attach
on a cumulative format like this too. So
you have a lot more flexibility to do some stuff here on drafters than you do on the other sites. It does get a little more rigid. I mentioned before, there's no rule, there's no rules, but once you start to build out your team on the other sites, it does get a little bit more rigid with what you can do.
I think it's important for us to notate that too. I don't know if we've really hammered that point that it's cumulative scoring.
Yeah.
On DraftKings.
I'm just tossing some wide receivers into the
who's up top?
So Goddard, Laporta, Gate, all the hurt guys. Justice, Bateman, Godwin. Do you want to do the Bucks thing?
We can do the Bucks thing, or we could do Justice Bateman if you wanted to do a second AFC team. I think that's the other way to do.
Okay, so let me think about this now. If we do, so we have 3 picks left.
Mm-hmm.
We want Tolbert to
Yeah.
close our Cowboys stack.
Mm-hmm.
Tight ends filled. Running back is filled. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm spitballing or thinking out loud. We have Cowboys, Ravens, Bills with Christian McCaffrey, Puka, and Mike Evans one-offs. Damn, that feels sexy, by the way. Cowboys, Ravens, Bills with those one-offs. We need Tolbert to fill out a Super Bowl roster. We need another Bill and another Raven.
Yeah, which is easy enough, I think.
So that's to what we need to keep in mind here. I'm not gonna. I know like 3 of these motherfuckers are watching, so I'm not gonna say who I want to get. But I will really quickly. I did bet the Rams. Benjamin asked, "Do you think the Rams win in Detroit?" It opened at +4 for the Rams, and I bet the Rams.
I think based on the room, we might have to take Tolbert now.
This is Tolbert Shakir.
Yeah.
This is Tolbert Shakir. And Shakir's like a smash if Gabe's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
If he is hurt.
Well, he is hurt.
He tore or he sprained his PCL, which is anywhere from a 10 to 3 week. Like, we don't know when we'll see Gabe again. He's not going to play this week for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what that means for him. And this is a great question from our resident expert hacker. Do you need a full Super Bowl roster? No, you don't. I don't believe that you need a full Super Bowl. Would you rather have it? Yeah. I think this is one where Tolbert is like the last of an archetype I would take. I think taking Jawan Jennings on drafters just to get a Super Bowl guy is cutting off your nose to spite your face. I'd take Mike Evans or Nico Collins or George Pickens or what, like take somebody like that who could drop 30 in the opening round because they're going to add more points to your team than he will. But we kind of did that already. You know what I mean? We kind of did the Mike Evans, Puka type situation. Mm-hmm. And so I think you could have made a case that we should have taken one more, non-Tolbert or non-Shakir. But I think with the way we put this together, Dak and only Ferguson, I don't think made a lot of sense. And I actually think Tolbert has real upside, like not 30-point upside, but like Tolbert could have like 4 for 60 and a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And he could do that all throughout the playoffs too. So
I think the way we could have done it as well is we could have pushed Shakir, right? And taken Godwin if we wanted to, and then hope that Shakir or Gabe Davis came back to us at the last pick. Right. We did just see Gabe Davis go, so it might not have happened.
Yeah.
But I think it was something that could have potentially been in play. Do we just want Ferguson for the tight end position? We're just going to roll.
I was going to say the only thing I bring up Mark Andrews is because he would give us that Raven. He could, they can both play. We don't have to do it. There's just not. I mean, there's not a lot back here.
Yeah, I mean the upside, the single game upside for Mark Andrews and a cumulative scoring. Yeah,
it's just as good.
It might be better on drafters than on any of the other sites. To be honest,
I do think he makes the most sense. This team is pretty good. I think this team's pretty good. Yeah. So for the audio folks, actually, I have to hit the head. Will you read this team off for the audio listener?
I got you. So at quarterback, we went Dak Prescott. We're betting on Dallas to make the Super Bowl with this team. At running back, we have Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, Justice Hill. Wide receiver is Diggs, Puka, Mike Evans, Rashad Bateman, Jalen Tolbert, Khalil Shakur. And at tight end, we went with Jake Ferguson and Mark Andrews. So the story of this team, the way we drafted this team, we got Dallas going to the Super Bowl. We've allowed ourselves the flexibility to have both Buffalo and Baltimore full lineups within that same Super Bowl with Justice Hill, Mark Andrews, and Rashad Bateman as the Baltimore players. Buffalo is James Cook, Steph Diggs, and Khalil Shakur, needing the running backs from them because we did draft McCaffrey, who we're hoping to get to the NFC Championship game. And I think that's another way you can do that conference championship thing we were talking about. You can do it with a single player. you don't have to stack both teams from it. We did it with the most dynamic player from San Francisco, right? So if we get 2 monster McCaffrey games, it's still better than he can outscore the rest of the running backs in 2 games if they had 4 games. So I think that's something that you can do, particularly on drafters when it is cumulative scoring. Yeah, this team came out really nice. I need to start drafting more Dallas Cowboys teams like this because I don't have enough Cowboys teams at all at this point.
This made me laugh. I love the phrase cut off their nose to spite their face. And Johnny says he's watched a lot of people cut off their face to spite their nose. That's good. No, I think this team turned out really nice. I also agree with you. We talked a little bit. We'll do one more. I would like to do a DraftKings draft. We can do that. But really, just really quick. You mentioned before that it feels a little more open. I do think it feels a little more open this year maybe than last year, but I've pretty strong conviction about the 49ers, and maybe I shouldn't because they did have a small lull during the middle of the season, and then of course the Ravens kicked their ass a couple weeks ago. But I just feel like in the NFC, with how things have really shaken out, with the drop off of Philly, with Sam Laporta hurt, with just kind of a little chaos in the NFC, that it just feels really tough for me. To that point, I think the only other team I feel like investing in from a let's take a stand on that team to make the Super Bowl is Dallas, which feels really gross because it's the Cowboys and what they do in the playoffs is shit the bed. But I think I'm much more confident now in those two teams that it feels Niners Cowboys feels more like last year Eagles Niners to me. I'm not comparing the teams, but in terms of probability of one of those two making it to the Super Bowl, I feel more confident in that than I did a month ago or something. I would have said, okay, Eagles, right? A month ago, the Eagles hadn't just lost 5 of 6, right? And AJ Brown got hurt and Devonta Smith got hurt, and it was very different back then. I think that it's a little unique scenario now.
I don't disagree with that too much. I just feel like last year the NFC, to your point, Eagles 49ers felt inevitable. Like it was, though, that was your NFC championship game. There was no teams that could come in. I feel that although it's likely Cowboys 49ers, both teams feel vulnerable to me this year. Like if you told me the Rams went on like a run and beat one of these two teams, right? I'm not saying the Rams made the Super Bowl or anything, but if you told me the Rams beat one of these two teams, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Like, I guess Detroit could still do it. It wouldn't shock me. I just see a pathway where it's just not a lock. Like I don't know. And that was just me. Like I said, other people might have felt differently. I just felt like it was a lock, and I built my teams poorly because of it, right? Because I was trying to build those teams in, and I was giving up too much in the opening rounds to even get those teams through. So last year was definitely a lesson there, and we take lessons away every year. This year's lesson was not drafting enough Dallas early.
That's really interesting, though, because you don't hear that a lot of the time where people will say, I believed this. It's usually the opposite. It's I believed this to be the future, right? I predicted the future, and thus, when I predicted the future, I nailed it, right? Like people are probably sick of me or us talking about Kyron Williams, but it was like that was a big take that we had that hit, and so it gets discussed, right? People who nailed Puka to a much further extent than we did, et cetera, et cetera. You don't hear people say what you just said, where it's like, I felt really confident, and actually I ended up right. I felt really confident in who was going to make a run and who had a chance to make the Super Bowl. But that confidence like screwed up my roster construction in order to win this game, because I was so confident in what the Super Bowl would look like or the conference championships would look like. And even though I was right, it misinformed me to how to win this game. Right. And like, that's It's such a that was such a interesting comment, and so true that no one ever thinks about it that way, where it's like, even when you nail it, that's round 4. You know, that's the end goal, which is what we really, right? That's week 17. That's what we care about. But you got to get there too. You know what I mean? And in this is much different than getting there in the regular season, where it's like you finish 2 out of 12, whatever. I'll take my shot at finishing 2 out of 12, right? Drafting rookies and stuff. But it's very different from this one. So you nailed it, but actually nailing it didn't help you as much as you thought it did.
Yeah, because I overdrafted the wrong, like you would say, the right players from those teams, but it made me dead for round 1 on too many teams. All right. We are on the clock at the 2nd overall pick.
I'm happy to build a CD team if you want to build a.
Let's do it. Team. I haven't gotten any 102s lately, so
I don't have it. Like I said, I think this is team 7 on DraftKings, and I have a bunch of CMC, which is like, thanks for complaining. Thanks for complaining about having Christian McCaffrey on your teams, but I don't have any CD, and I mean that feels bad too, right?
Yeah, you definitely want CD, and shout out to CD, because I remember having the conversation this year where we were like, he has to take the leap this year. It has to be this year. He has to take the leap. And by God, did he ever take the leap this year?
Lord, he's going to go 103 next year in drafts.
And deservingly so. So shout out to him.
He's quite good. Also, fuck him, because I had the best non-CD team in Best Ball Mania.
Oh God, that night was still so depressing. Like in terms of
also, I love everyone that's in our Discord. You guys are awesome. But the people, while us non-CD finals teams were tilting the fact that it was 7-3 at halftime and CeeDee Lamb has 35 fantasy points, and they're like, well, it's not that bad. It's only 7-3. I'm like, do I get more money because it's only 7-3? No, CeeDee Lamb has 190 yards in the first half. Like, and now look.
I actually wish it was a blowout.
Yeah, I would have rather. Yes, I would have rather it wasn't 7-3. I would have rather they scored 1 million touchdowns, because guess what? Now I had the best goddamn CeeDee Lamb, non-CeeDee Lamb team in all of Best Ball Mania. That's why I was fucking complaining. Don't tell me about 7-3. Should we do CD Amon-Ra for the week 17 correlation?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it, right?
No, actually. Okay. So Dak is gone. That's unfortunate.
Ooh, that's not great.
All right, we got 8 seconds. And let's default it. Let's KC.
Yeah, we can do KC.
I would like Mahomes, but we don't have to do
Pollard. I think I would have done Mahomes first, just because you can still build the KC side if you have Mahomes, right? Although we get him anyways. Right. But you know what I mean? Like,
I like to do, see, that's interesting. I like to do the opposite and put my opponent's feet to the fire and say, look, I just took Kelsey from you. If you would like to build Mahomes, Rushy Rice, MVS stacks, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But especially with the tight end element of DraftKings, I really like just taking the tight end, because like, even if we lose Mahomes, like, it's not over. But I prefer to have Kelsey, even as bad as Kelsey has been, with the tight end position for this tournament. I do like Kelsey.
Yeah, I like Kelsey as well. I guess my rebuttal would just be, it's not just Rashee Rice; it's Isaiah Pacheco. You can grab.
Yeah, they got 4 guys for sure.
Yeah, you can get that KC side. Again, do we think they're making it? No, but I'm not going to not build Kansas City teams, right?
Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, we got to do it.
And the Dolphins stink right now. I mean, I'm drafting a bunch of Dolphins, but the Dolphins stink right now, and they lost every edge rusher. I don't know if anybody was watching the game last night, especially with the audio on. Like every injury was like, there goes another edge rusher for and they lost both of their best edge rushers are out for the season, and then Van Ginkel got hurt last night, and the other guy got carted off with an air cast around his. The Dolphins are in trouble.
Pollard here, right?
You gotta take Pollard.
Yeah, Pollard's the easy pick.
That's nice. 23. Okay.
All right. Big money, no whammies here.
Please, God.
We might have
Jay Strez, one time.
we might have the right start to this team. Just look past them.
Fuck.
Just you can't even see him.
Nico scores more points. His ADP's higher.
AJ Brown's really tall. All right, we get Rashid Rice.
All right, we're good.
I think
Okay.
I sold him on the AJ Brown's really tall.
We have clearly, yeah, exactly. We we have clearly set up our Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs, Cowboys. We need one more from either of those two teams, and we're good. What do you like to do? So, like, we're also at a funny spot where we're not in need of week one help necessarily. I mean, it's not hurting. You know, it doesn't hurt to have it, but I would like to, if possible, get another one or two NFC teams.
Yeah, we need to do NFC teams on this one.
Since we went the Mahomes Kelsey route, we go now over to the NFC. In which case, we're going to need to keep running backs in the back of our mind because we don't have a Chiefs running back.
Yeah, that's true.
And Pacheco's gone.
Yep.
Okay, Evans, Gus, Devonta Smith, David Montgomery.
I like Evans. I like Evans or Devonta Smith, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So, do you want to do Bucks or Eagles? Because we have options for both of them. Because Swift's down here.
Let's do Eagles. Let's do Devonta Smith. Just for something different. Because
Swift.
Yeah, we grab Swift.
Holy shit, this team's good.
I really don't care about ADP on DraftKings right now because of how out of line it is.
No, it doesn't matter.
So I'd rather just grab Swift here.
If ADP were efficient, we wouldn't have been able to get Mahomes, Pollard, CD, Rice, and Kelsey on the same team.
Right. And I think we can still get another NFC team here.
Yeah. So certainly Packers are available. Lions, the Lions are technically going to be available, but it's like JMO Montgomery if he makes it back.
I mean, we're not going to draft him on this team, but I just want to bring it up since we're doing DraftKings. We talk about inefficient price players. Mostert on DraftKings.
It's egregious.
Is egregiously priced.
This is the first team I don't have Raheem Mostert on it.
Yeah, he's like
a top 20 pick.
I love Achane, but I don't think Achane should be going over Mostert in this.
Achane goes in the 20s and Mostert goes in the 40s. It doesn't make any gut. Has no one watched the whole season?
Yeah.
Like Mostert has 20 fucking touchdowns. The whole reason why Achane doesn't play that much is because Mostert is on the team.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. Dude, we can still do this Bucks thing if we. I know we got.
Do you want to guarantee? Yeah, but do we want to sacrifice two guys to the gods, or do we want to go to the Packers? Packers play the Cowboys. Packers play the Cowboys.
Packers play Cowboys. Buddy, I think we can do Chris Godwin and be happy about it.
Yep. I mean, at worst, he's a round one booster, right? At worst, which is not like we have left. It's not like we need 4. We need a chief,
which we can still wait on for sure.
I just want to queue some up. Jesus, these names. Where's Richie? I'm not queuing Noah Gray. That's we've drawn. That's the end of the road when you get to Noah Gray. Okay.
Our tight end is Kelsey, right?
Correct. We should not draft another tight end unless we think they're like so good they'll boost our flex. But we're in a weird spot.
God, I like Pickens in these drafts too. Just because I know he's probably dead after
Let's
week
just take
1.
him. Let's just take him. We don't have any bills. He makes sense. I know he doesn't play to our Super Bowl, but we don't. He plays a team that we don't have in the opening round, which is fine. We've all our playoff, our Super Bowl matchup is already set. We have almost the full team. We're gonna draft one of these losers in the in the last round or second to last round. At this point, we're kind of just drafting these dudes, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's fine.
when are we up again?
I think we can do your Cade Otton.
I don't hate Cade Otton if
go
it's
another
late.
buck. I just want to put these guys in the queue though.
Yeah, Cade Otton's not bad. So we got, I mean, CEH I think is the chief we want. I know it's gross, but they're all gross.
This team's so beautiful, and we're gonna take fucking CEH.
But we can wait. I mean, like he's gonna be like a last round flyer.
Yeah.
We're so stacked at wide receiver. We're actually kind of just stacked everywhere.
We are. Pollard, Swift. So like technically, I mean, if we're turning these like somewhat luxury picks, running back does make a little bit of sense, like in Aaron Jones, and just say maybe he's the reason we get out of round 1 against our Cowboys. He's a sacrificial lamb. I don't love it, but I'm just. We're in a weird luxury place.
I hate to even say it, but Buffalo's bad against the run, and Najee's there, and we already have Pickens.
I mean, I'm totally fine with it.
You know what I mean? Like
I've taken Najee. Look. You have to let the biases go from the rest of the best ball season. I've taken Najee. This is not my first Najee team, so
he's so cheap.
It's fine.
He's so cheap.
We made the Steelers thing. We don't have the Bills. Running back makes a little bit of sense for us. It would be really sad if he outscores Pollard and Swift in the first round, but it's possible. He's outscored him. He's outscored him both of the last 2 weeks.
All right, so I think with that,
do we want to just lock up the Chief we want now?
Yeah, because unless there's like an egregiously priced guy that you see.
I mean, Elijah Moore makes sense. We don't have a Texan. Again, if we're doing kind of that thing.
Yeah, I like Elijah Moore.
Or Singletary.
Ooh, Singletary's fun too.
I think I do think one of those Browns makes sense.
All right, let's do a Brown.
You have a preference on Singletary or?
No. I mean, Singletary's getting a lot of work, but I don't really have a preference.
I think I like Singletary.
Yeah, and more running backs than we usually take, but I like it still.
But we're so stacked. I'm saying that because then we can take a Chiefs wide receiver and not take CEH.
Right.
Because it boosts the wide receivers over CEH.
Yeah.
What did Singletary do last week? 20. Jesus Christ. Another 24 carries.
Dude, Damian Pierce just dead, right? Like,
yeah, holy shit. We it reminds me, Hacker mentioned, and it was a totally like good question, was like, was Miles Sanders the worst pick, like in terms of expectations and cost and all that kind of stuff? And he said, other than Jerry Jeudy, because Jerry Jeudy was this year's Allen Robinson at the 2-3 turn. But Damian Pierce gets a pass, like from all of us, for I guess he's younger or whatever. We're writing off. That dude was atrocious, like a horrendous pick, and just completely lost that job to Devin Singletary.
I should be rich because I had like 22% Devin Singletary this year. You would think that I would just have all the money.
I think I had 2% Devin Singletary this year.
It was just a clear two-headed backfield, right? Like if Pierce went down or something, like Singletary was the guy.
Watson, Richie James, or I don't know if Tony's out there. Nope, that's on running backs.
Tony, you have a preference?
I just want to double check. God, I really think it's Richie James.
All right, let's do Richie James.
I'm holding on to the prior from May of 2023 that Richie James should have been like playing over Sky. That I've been wrong about that for 10 months or whatever, but we'll see. I just need a touchdown. That seems we drafted 2 good teams. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about both of those. They're also a little bit different than some of the teams that I've been drafting really quickly. Rob ran down the team on Drafters. I'll run down quickly the team on DraftKings, and then we will get out of here. We will, of course, be back tomorrow. We're going to be trying to do a bunch of playoff best ball content over the course of this entire week. So we're definitely going to be back with a live show tomorrow. We're going to have another roundtable for those who have the playoff almanac, and we're going to see if we can sneak some more content in here. We got a handful of days to draft some playoff best ball teams, so let's do it. But started with CeeDee Lamb out of the 102 and came back around and took, with our next 2 picks, the old Patrick Mahomes and Travis. Well, we took Travis Kelce first, but we took the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce stack to start a little bit of a Chiefs Cowboys things. And boy, did it fall into place thereafter. You can't get much better than this start if you're building out a Chiefs Cowboys Super Bowl with Tony Pollard in the 4th round and Rashee Rice in the 5th round, getting all the good players basically from both of those teams, sans Ferguson and Cooks. But then come back around, and we know we have built for that Chiefs Cowboys Super Bowl. So we have, I don't want to say luxuries, but we can start attacking on some players that aren't necessarily players who we're counting on for the Super Bowl. So we actually went to the Eagles with Devonta Smith and DeAndre Swift, and then kind of, hedged a little bit, but I don't hate it actually, with Chris Godwin. So we've guaranteed either Godwin or our 2 Eagles are gone, but we've also guaranteed that someone is advancing right into the 2nd round. Came back and took the Steelers with George Pickens and Najee Harris. We don't have any Bills, so they made a lot of sense both round 1 and if they were able to sneak out a win over the Bills. And then closed it out with a Devin Singletary one-off, because of course we have no Browns on this team, and then Richie James to close out. We needed one more piece to complete a starting lineup for our Chiefs Cowboys Super Bowl. Really fun team. Both these teams were really fun, but I'm particularly excited about that one. Any kind of closing thoughts on everything? We talked for an hour and a half, but any kind of closing thoughts on anything, either of those 2 teams, anything that just stuck out from kind of the conversations we've had?
I think maybe the one thing we should have considered a little more with the Singletary pick is maybe getting another buck there. And I mean, I like Kate Otten a lot, but I think one of the ways we could have gone is Trey Palmer. And like in a vacuum, I like Singletary better, but we could have had that 3rd NFC team locked up where, yes, we're going to lose 2 of our players after the 1st round, but we're still live theoretically for 2 of our NFC teams. As long as the Chiefs make it through, we're still battling there. I think maybe that was the one misstep on the team, especially when we have Pollard and Swift. And
yeah,
you know what I mean? Maybe that was the one misstep on that particular team. I don't think it's overly egregious by any sense, because I don't think the Bucs are making the Super Bowl.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
But
Shocking.
on this team, but on this team, like you said, win one game, and the next thing you know, that decision is more impactful.
Correct. So I think maybe that's something we should have considered a little more. But if our nitpick is our 11th round pick on this team, and we love the way the rest of this started out, I think we are drafting more correctly than incorrectly. And the logic is there, is what I'll end with.
I agree. I totally agree. I don't have anything to add. We will be back tomorrow night to probably just draft some more playoff best ball teams. Maybe we'll hop on Underdog, get back with our friends at Drafters, and see if we can build out some more interesting teams. Those 2 teams kind of fell into place a little bit. The first one, we lost all the 49ers after taking CMC, so it got a little hairy for a second, but then everything else kind of fell into place. This one was like a monkey could have made the first 7 picks, so it wasn't really that difficult. Maybe tomorrow we'll try to test out some different unique builds. So come join us tomorrow. Hopefully back at, I believe Rob and I haven't talked about this. 7 p.m. Eastern is our regularly scheduled Tuesday time. We'll try to get back on schedule, but pushed it forward or pulled it forward a little bit early tonight, so everybody can go enjoy the national championship game. That's what I'm going to go do. Go. Sorry for my. We have a lot of Michigan fans, and B. Kurt, our buddy B. Kurt, is a Michigan fan from the Spike Week fam. I'm rooting for Washington. I'm rooting for Washington tonight. Go Huskies. But enjoy the national championship game. Enjoy your playoff best ball drafts tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace. Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.